Composition is complicated. If you don't know how to use it, your art can feel off, cramped, like something's wrong, but you're just not sure what. But it can be one of the most important things to learn if you want harmony, visual interest, legibility, and overall cohesion. So welcome to Art Every Day. Today's day 48, and today I'm going to be learning composition. So I've been told that one of the best ways to learn is to teach. So hopefully by putting it in this format, you'll be able to learn a little something, and I'll be able to teach myself something new. I did use a few resources here today, and I'm going to put links down below for anybody who wants to learn a little bit more than what I'm going to be able to cover today. I'll also warn that a lot of this is made up. This is stuff that I remember hearing from somewhere, but either I don't have a source for it, or it's an idea that I made up entirely, just from my own life experiences, as limited as they are. But for today, I'm going to be focusing on developing language and giving ourselves a toolbox of frameworks to use as we're thinking of composition, and some of the history behind those words as well, because I think they're interesting for getting a better understanding of what's happening and why. I'm also going to take a couple of examples of famous artworks and maybe lesser known artworks in order to give examples for what I'm talking about today. And with that said, let's get started. So let's start all the way back with just the word composition. So two parts to it. Position comes from Latin or Italian compositio, to place or set together. So anytime that we're putting things together, like I'm putting these lines together, I'm creating some sort of composition, even with this entire piece here. So I'm going to put in one circle up the top left here, another circle over here, and embedded inside of this frame, there's some kind of relationship happening with these two circles. And we can break down this box and sort of give language into where they are, where if they've been placed, where they're set. And so just to give language to it, we've got halfway here, so they're in the upper half, but one is in the upper left and the other is in the upper right. And if we want to break that down even further, the upper left of the upper right. So we have this very small circle, almost in the exact same position as the larger one on the bigger scale. So we've got the upper left here. Let's put in a couple of other circles. Let's redraw that one. So we've got two more circles that have been placed within this frame. So one of these is around the halfway mark if we want to give that language, and the other, both of them, are in the lower half of the composition within this frame of the box. Now, if I want to break this down even further, I could say that this circle is along the right-hand third of this box, this rectangle. So splitting it up into thirds, we can sort of coordinate where it is. It's also along the lower third of this rectangle. And we'll talk a little bit more about rule of thirds. I'm sure if you know anything about art, photography, anything along those lines, this is something that's already pretty familiar to you. So I want to put a spin on the definition of composition. I'm going to call it a series of spatial relationships. So what do I mean by that? So let's take these two up at the top here. There's a certain distance between them, and I'm gonna call this distant. It feels like they're very far away from each other. So there's that relationship between these two elements, and that relationship along the composition here. Might even call this cold because of that distance. And then these two down here are very close to one another. Maybe we could say that they're joined together. Feels like they were purposefully placed. We could say that there's warmth here as opposed to coldness up in the top one. And with that warmth, I think you could say that there's a bit more energy because of that warmth, because of that closeness. The energy's a little higher here. And there's energy here too, but it feels a little lower. I wouldn't call it energy as much as I would tension, so maybe there's some potential energy here. Like there's a wire bound between them that's going to be snapped or that they could fall to the ground. Whereas these ones, the tension is very low. The
potential energy is very low, and they feel very snug.
So composition isn't just where you place something on a canvas, in a photograph, but it's how the elements are arranged and the way that it makes the viewer feel. And this gets into some strange, maybe esoteric territory, but I think that's one of the most important things about art, is being able to create an experience and visualize, verbalize, create something that expresses the way that we see and interact with the world. And if it's not something somebody else has seen before, maybe we can share that experience with somebody else. So let's talk a little bit more about relationships. You already know what this is. This is the yin, this is the yang, and I'm gonna use this symbol to sort of get at the heart of what I'm talking about. And this might seem unrelated to composition, but I think it's pretty important.
Especially when it comes to concepts like energy, and the way that compositions contain, move, and feel energy. So let's split this in half here. And we've obviously got our dark side over on the right. So let's just write dark. And the opposite of that is the light. It feels like the dark side has a little bit of less energy, while the light side has more energy. So there's your yin, there's your yang, and there's a balance between them. In this, there's a bit of a harmony. Now let's find a different relationship. So out here, we've got color. This is quite colorful, this red in the background, where the yin and yang is very monochromatic. And so we create another relationship, attention. Anytime that you have two objects, whether they're in space, there is a relationship. So this is the right side over here. This is the left side over here. Even small things like the left and the right can change the way that we perceive something. Most people are dominant in their right hand, and so unconsciously we might think that something on the right should take precedent, or something on the left might have a bit of a background quality to it. I'm not exactly explaining it right here, but there's another way that I can show you, maybe a different time. Now you might be asking yourself right now, because I'm definitely asking myself, what does this have to do with composition? And the reason that I came up with was spatial relationships always have at least two or more elements present. So to give an example of this, let's just draw a quick box, draw in two circles inside of it. So already we sort of feel and see a relationship between these two. They're almost parallel to one another. They're almost on opposite sides. Maybe there's a bit of tension between them, but it's balanced. You feel balance in this. You feel symmetry. That's not how you spell symmetry. You feel symmetry, and you sort of feel maybe a bit of potential energy with how it's placed on the canvas. And so, speaking of being placed on the canvas itself, even if you don't have two elements present, the frame that you use, the canvas that you use, is a second element. So this circle, for example, this isn't a lone circle in the middle of nowhere. This is a circle within a square that we have defined. And so where is it within the square? It's up in the top right. You could say, if you want to get specific about it, it's in the top right third along that line there. So we've got our 1, 2 on the left, and we've got sort of these thirds that are dividing this plane. And our elements here, 1 is the canvas itself, the frame that we've placed it in, and 2 is that circle. Now, if all of this feels and seems strange, and it's like, why aren't you just showing me your rule of thirds? Why aren't you showing me the golden ratio? I feel like those things are easy enough to look up and sort of learn on your own, where this is something like actually using those to their best potential. You have to understand how the framework that you use is going to influence the relationships between elements, the amount of energy between them. Now let's go with something that most of us are probably familiar with, or if you're not, this is an important part of composition as well, focal points. So your focal point in a picture, in a drawing, in heck, a 3D model, it's the center of your visual interest inside of a composition. It's often higher energy or it's the center of surrounding energy. So to give an example, up in that top box, we've got sort of this point. There are a couple of squiggle lines that define it, and the energy is all inside of that squiggle, inside of that little black dot inside of the frame. Whereas this one I'm drawing in here, we've got this point that doesn't quite exist. We've got lines that are radiating out of it, and you can almost feel the traces of these lines. It's like arrows pointing. If somebody were to point a bow and arrow at you, or if you were looking down the barrel of a gun, energy is coming out of that line in a similar way, I think. So that's what I mean by it's either the center of the energy or the surrounding energy. So in our top focal point, the energy is inside of that. In this lower example, the energy surrounds it and points towards that focal point. And I'm going to call this positive energy up here, because we are creating something that wasn't there. So this is a positive focal point, and this is a negative focal point. Negative as in negate, we removed something or something is not there. But the focal point still remains. Like we're following along, and we're looking at this bottom left portion. All right, let's shift gears again. So arrangement, so where the elements are placed. And even in this, I've got the title arranged towards the top, a little side piece with a definition to the side, and an example in the center. So an arrangement can make a piece more legible, less legible, and what I chose to say here is it impacts the flow of energy inside of a composition. So I'm drawing in these boxes here, and I've got a link down below where you can see more examples of arrangement styles. But just to give a few basics, we've got our rule of thirds, we've got our golden ratio, we've got close to a golden ratio here. We can kind of get our spiral. And then we've got sort of this V shape, and we've got these two lines that come down, and you can feel that energy. And then an interesting thing too, you can mix and match as many of these within one piece as possible. You don't have to use just one. You can use one as a main framework. Often it's a rule of thirds or a golden ratio, but you can combine how these elements interact and use multiple of them at the same time. So let's talk a little bit about that energy again. So up in our top left rule of thirds, it feels like things are quite balanced and harmonious. In the top right with a golden ratio, very similar, where you've got a larger element and a bit more energy going down into the top right. In that bottom left with the V, you could argue that it's down at the very bottom of that frame where the two lines are pointing towards, and similar in the bottom right one. Now, I've done a lot of talking so far, so I wanted to switch things up and just give an example. This is probably something you've seen before. It's the Great Wave, and you can feel this flow of energy in it. So using different methods as we showed before. So there's a golden ratio in here. I'm going to break it down a bit further for you as well, but you can feel it throughout the entire piece. So let's go ahead and start to break this down. So let's get a line along the bottom here, and this is just to show, I guess, where our halfway mark is. So here's about halfway. So halfway is where the wave ends, it feels like, and it looks to be. We can split this up into thirds too. So where the wave crests is at one of the thirds, and where the bottom of that crest is the other third. And let's draw this line up here. We've got another point of interest near that third. It looks like Mount Fuji in the background. Let's see what else we can find. So there's the obvious golden ratio here. This very dramatic spiral that takes up the entire composition. And it's from this that everything else is derived. Let's see if we can find anything else here. So we've got these sweeping lines that sort of bring that flow of energy with this boat here, this boat there. and these boats are following along with the wave. It feels like it's being picked up by the wave or crashing under the wave. And then the wave, I especially love how, let's just draw a line here at the top of this, and the other side. So that's about a third as well. Let's get this line. And now I've drawn in where it looks like the horizon line is. It's at the bottom of that crest. It's where it looks like that we're looking at. And this is a very low horizon line. And now what does that mean for this? This can imply very high potential energy for anything above that horizon line. So what I mean by that is the same as if you have a wheel up at the top of a hill. You toss it down the hill and it's going to start to roll. And we've also got these lines. I just kind of drew this line in as a almost like a vanishing point to see if we could find the edge of that wave. But yeah, anything that's up high has the ability or potential to fall down low. And up in this upper third is where a lot of this potential energy is. In that middle third, the bulk of it, with the majority of the water body itself too. Now things are going to start to get a little weird. So I keep talking about the flow of energy. So I thought it was suitable for, since we were talking about the Great Wave, I think it's both in Chinese and Buddhist philosophy, but this idea of qi. And qi is sort of this timeless, invisible energy that animates everything around us. So I've heard many different definitions of what qi is. Some say it's like sky energy. Some say that it's just energy or life or light. But I think one of the fundamental uses of this word is wind and breath and air. And this ties into a few other ways that energy has been thought of throughout the world. I especially want to hone in on this word animate, because it's an English word, but we've borrowed it from Latin languages, such as French. And this word really just means soul, spirit, breath, spirit. So in the same way that in Chinese philosophy, wind, breath, air animates life, creates energy, and so too do we get our word animate and spirit. So let's talk about spirit too. Spirit means nearly the exact same thing. It is breath or to breathe. So again, this idea of some invisible energy that's giving life to everything. And, you know, I'm able to speak because I'm breathing, and when somebody stops breathing, they're dead, essentially. And you can apply that to other things too. If you see a leaf that rolls across the ground, it feels like there's a certain life to it. There's an energy to it. So there's two ideas that are tied together from two different cultures, but let's go even further. Let's pick another culture. So in the Hebrew, the word ruach, you kind of have to add a little ch at the end of that. Ruach is very similar. It's translated as spirit in English versions of the Old Testament. So what the heck is ruach? It is almost identical to what we've already defined. It's life, it's energy, it's breath. Now our English translation, the first time that word ruach appears, Genesis 1 chapter 2, where the spirit, that's the translation that we choose here, of God was hovering over the waters. So this is how important it is to Hebrew cosmology, to biblical cosmology. They see breath and that life energy as
it's an essential part of the universe, and it is life in a way. Now, the reason that I'm showing this isn't to make any sort of argument, but to show that many different people across many periods of time, culture groups, language barriers, have noticed the same patterns. And when we're arranging things on a canvas, on in 3 dimensions, we're creating a series of relationships that allow energy to flow in different directions. And to give a great example of this, I'm going to show an example of that energy flowing through a composition. All right, now this is by Bill Inman, I believe, Song of the Lonely Mountain. And you already feel this sort of energy flowing through it, right? So we have water trickling down from high energy, high potential energy to low potential energy, down along the rocks towards the bottom. So let's just break apart this composition and see that flow. And I'm not even going to look at the water itself. We're just going to look at the arrangement of the brush strokes, the arrangement of the composition, and how it implies the energy without even needing the creek there almost.
All right, so I've got this subdivided into halves. Now I'm looking for some thirds here. Just breaking apart the composition.
And here we've got it broken down even further. So we've got these thirds that are going through. We can see these lines here. So this line up along the top stone, you can almost feel it's pointing in that direction. This brush stroke along this stone points down and to the right. Same with this one in the center. And they kind of come crashing down onto this stone here, where the bottom of it stops the energy, right in the center of the piece. And now we've got it deflecting and turning and going the opposite way, and it follows that shape of the stones. And this stone here, we've got this curve that implies that it's speeding up, and a similar situation, it's getting to a bump, it's interrupted, and it's falling down. So even without pointing out the creek in the center, if we just follow the lines of the stones and the way that they're arranged on this piece, you can feel that flow of energy going through the entire painting. So what tools were used here? We've got it broken down into thirds. It's coming down and through, following these points of interest, I'll call them. So middle there, down to here, zigzag across, and back down. And I'm just gonna fill out where this river is, but you get this sense that the energy is coming through, flowing down, and using the structure of the painting to channel downwards. There we go, a little bit more here where it pools. So what does this have to do with the rule of thirds?
So excellent question. So the rule of thirds is just the framework that we're building on top of. It gives a little bit of a visual harmony, but it's a structure for us to build on top of and allow the energy to flow through. And it gives us anchor points of where to place them, where to draw these lines that point towards the flow of energy. I hope this is making sense, because even though I'm saying these words, they don't actually make sense to me. But like internally, I understand.
If that makes sense at all. So yeah, thank you for stopping in and sharing a portion of your day with me. And if you learned something new today, let me know down in the comments below. If you didn't learn anything new, let me know in the comments below. If you think I'm a little crazy and should probably see someone, let me know in the comments below, because I think maybe you're onto something. But hey, now if you got to this portion of the video, you're probably done. So I'm gonna have a little bit of an update here at the end for this upcoming week. What composition week is gonna look like. So if you are watching, you're probably one of 2 or 3 people who are still watching this right now. I know who you are. But
yeah, let's just break down what I'm going to be doing this week for composition.
So Sunday, that's today, it's composition 101 for myself, to try and figure out what the heck I'm talking about, or even what I'm doing really. Monday is going to be study. I'm going to take 3 examples and I'm just going to break them down, and maybe I'll use what I talked about today. Maybe I'll break it down into rules of thirds, etc., etc. Tuesday, I'm going to study by practicing 3 different composition styles. So I'm going to try one of each, and then I think at the end, I'm going to try combining several into one. Wednesday is going to be a mini study, so I'm just going to take one composition. And why it's a mini study, Wednesday I'm usually pretty exhausted because it's the 3rd day in office at my full-time job. So I'm just going to copy something very quickly. Thursday, if my camera's working on my phone, or if I can find another way to take pictures, I'm going to do a photo study. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to create compositions or find compositions and capture them. Whether those are buildings down an alley, fountains, things of that nature. Friday's going to be a bit of a wild card because I don't know what to do on Fridays. By that point in the week, I'm pretty tired. Probably going to go hang out with some people. Friday nights are for hanging out. So I'll do something. I'm not sure what, but I'll do something. Saturday, if everything goes well, if I'm alive in the morning, I'm going to try to do a master study. I haven't done one in a while. What I mean when I say master study, I'm going to try and do a one-to-one copy, near one-to-one copy of something that somebody else has already done, and try and get inside the head of that person. So that's it for today. Thank you for sticking with me all the way to the end if you made it this far. Or if you skipped to the end, I see that in the analytics. I saw that you skipped ahead. And that's okay. That's fine with me. But if you're down, hit subscribe. I've got more of these every single day for the next year. And, I'm not sure what's going to happen by the end of it, but maybe it'll be cool. And then also, I forgot to mention, underneath, I have had an idea where throughout the week I might try and work on one video as I'm working on the other ones. So take time to create one video for Sundays, right? So give myself a lot of time to make that, and then at the end of the week just click upload so I can rest on Sunday. And I know that goes against what I've said, like doing art every single day. I'll still find something to do on Sunday that's artistic, but it's just not going to be work for me. It's not going to be dedicated time to try and learn or to push. It's just going to be for fun, for relaxation and rest. So thanks again. I'll see you tomorrow if you decide to stick around. Bye.